Never content to rest on our laurels, Pinnacol Assurance has set our sights on being the best workers' compensation company in the nation. Our name itself, a play on Pinnacol, reflects a commitment to being a peak performer in the industry. And its spelling, COL at the end instead of CLE, recognizes our heritage and dedication to the people of Colorado. Helping our agents and policyholders reach the pinnacle of success in Colorado is what we're all about. It's what our name says, but more importantly, it reflects our entire way of doing business. We perform at the peak so that you can too. Pinnacol was established in 1915 as the assured source for workers' comp coverage for Colorado companies, regardless of their size or risk, a role we still fill today. Over the years, we've grown from an industry pioneer to Colorado's choice for workers' compensation. Today, approximately 55,000 policyholders across Colorado have made Pinnacol their carrier of choice. Competitors have come and gone with changes in Colorado's business climate, but not Pinnacol. Our financial stability and commitment to Colorado have made us an anchor in the insurance marketplace. Pinnacol goes the extra mile to help customers create safe workplaces and prevent accidents. We offer policyholders an extensive collection of free safety and risk management training and educational resources. And we're proud to employ the largest team of safety consultants in Colorado, whose services are available to policyholders at no cost. When you work with Pinnacol, you gain a level of expertise that you're unlikely to find with other insurance carriers. That's because Colorado's workers' compensation is all we do, which is why we do it so well. Internally, we've created a culture that cares deeply about delivering a personal level of service with patience and compassion. In fact, we're often told by customers and agents that our employees are among the friendliest and most helpful of any business they deal with. Another way we demonstrate our compassion is through community involvement. Pinnacol gives back to Colorado communities that support us through the following activities. The Pinnacol Foundation, which awards college scholarships to the children of Colorado workers injured or killed on the job, regardless of carrier. Pinnacol in Action, an employee-run volunteer program that allows employees 16 hours of paid time off to volunteer in the community. And our employee giving program allows employees to financially support the Mile High United Way. Pinnacol provides a 100% match, doubling the impact of each employee's donation. In today's webinar, you'll learn about Pinnacol's underwriting process, our process for new business submissions, pricing structure, and Pinnacol's partnership approach for growing your business. Before getting started, I'd like to share the variety of ways you can easily navigate this program content to suit your needs. In fact, you'll have complete control over your viewing experience. While you may choose to view the content of this program in its entirety, you can also simply watch any individual chapters that you desire. You can even choose to view this content as often as you like, whether in this session or on return visits. You'll notice in the lower left-hand corner just below this video window that we provided an agenda tab for this program. By clicking on this tab, a window appears in the lower left corner on this page, revealing the chapters that make up this program. By clicking on any of these chapter points within the agenda, you'll instantly jump to that portion of the presentation. Another key feature provided is the Ask a Question tab. By clicking on Ask a Question, you can submit a question to us at any point in this training session, and we'll get back to you with a response via email within one business day. And finally, through the Resources tab, you'll have access to related materials, valuable forms, and additional information, all simply by clicking on any individual resource listed there. As you know, the underwriting process can vary from insurance company to insurance company. This portion of the presentation will describe Pinnacol's underwriting process. At Pinnacol, our underwriting philosophy is founded upon fulfilling our mission to provide assured protection to Colorado employers and their greatest asset, their employees. At Pinnacol, our underwriting process is known as exposure-based underwriting. Exposure-based underwriting enables us to analyze risk based on the inherent hazards in a given industry. We evaluate which hazards are controllable and which hazards are not controllable. Our goal is to provide you with the most fair and adequate price for your clients. Exposure-based underwriting is based on the following four factors: evaluating risk, reviewing the organization's safety culture, analyzing policy history, and identifying the appropriate pricing structure. Let's explore each of these components in more detail, starting with the first component, evaluating risk. Pinnacol evaluates risk in a number of different ways. First, we evaluate the business and the risk exposures associated with its specific industry. For example, when writing a new policy for a restaurant, we can assume that a typical restaurant will have some degree of the following inherent risks in their environment: cuts, burns, slips, trips, and falls. If the restaurant makes deliveries, driving is another exposure that will need to be considered. Second, we need to consider the type of restaurant. Is the restaurant a small business with just a few employees? This would be considered your typical restaurant with average risk. Perhaps it's a larger upscale operation that sits at the top of a ski mountain where employees are required to take a ski lift to get to and from work. On paper, you can see the policy is for a restaurant, but when you take a closer look, you see there are many variables that go into evaluating the risk associated with that type of establishment. Next, we need to know what factors may increase or decrease exposures to specific hazards. Do they have safety rules in place? Do they provide the appropriate personal protective equipment that helps mitigate the risk of injury? And lastly, are there any unique factors that increase or decrease an employee's exposure to a risk? Take, for example, a manufacturing plant. For years, they had a manual process in place on their assembly line. Recently, they converted to an automated process, and this change has helped decrease employees' exposure to risk. This is important information that would need to be included in a risk evaluation. Before we move on, I'd like to once again remind you that if you have questions related to any of the information we're reviewing in this program, please be sure to click on the Ask a Question tab below, and we'll respond via email to your question within 1 business day. Keeping employees safe isn't just the right thing to do. It's one of the smartest long-term investments an organization can make. Employers committed to safety and to creating a safety culture within their companies see measurable returns in many areas, which may include lower workers' compensation costs and higher employee satisfaction, performance, and retention. So a key component to exposure-based underwriting is reviewing and understanding the organization's commitment to creating a safety culture. We want to know what mechanisms are in place to keep their employees safe. Does the organization have an overall safety policy? Is the policy communicated to all new employees during their new hire orientation? Do they have job-specific safety rules in place? For example, in a restaurant, do they have specific safety rules for dishwashers, line cooks, servers, and bartenders? If they offer delivery services, do they have specific safety rules in place for their drivers? Does the organization conduct safety training on an ongoing basis? When evaluating an organization's safety culture, we also examine how they handle claims and claims management. For example, do they inform their employees of the company's 2 designated medical providers? When an injury occurs, is it reported within 24 hours? Do they complete an accident report after an injury occurs and then take steps to mitigate that risk in the future? So far in our discussion of exposure-based underwriting, we've looked at performing an evaluation of risk as well as examining the organization's commitment to creating a safety culture. The third component we review in exposure-based underwriting is the organization's policy history. Here's what we examine. Payroll trends. Do they have steady payroll? Is this a seasonal operation like a landscaping company where payroll might ebb and flow based on the time of year? Is the organization growing and adding new employees? When audit information exists, we evaluate the audit trends. We also review experience modification or EMOD rating trends. This information is provided by the National Council on Compensation Insurance, or NCCI. If the company's been a policyholder in the past, we also review their payment history with Pinnacol. Did they make their payments on time? Was their policy canceled due to any payment issues? Once we have a full understanding of the organization and any unique features of their operations, we can then identify the appropriate pricing structure. Pinnacol's pricing structure covers potential exposures, not losses. Knowing the organization and the inherent hazards in the specific industry, we're then able to determine a fair and adequate price to cover the potential exposures. As we wrap up this segment, let's do a quick review. At Pinnacol, exposure-based underwriting is based on the following 4 factors. The first is evaluating risk. This requires evaluating the type of business and the risks inherent to the specific industry that business is in. Secondly, reviewing the organization's commitment to creating a safety culture. Third, analyzing policy history. This includes a review of the company's payroll and payroll trends, examining their experience modification or EMOD trends from NCCI, as well as reviewing past policies and payment history. The fourth and final factor in exposure-based underwriting is identifying the appropriate pricing structure. This will enable Pinnacol to determine a fair and adequate price to cover potential exposures. When submitting a new business application, we want this process to be as easy as possible for you. We recognize that as an agent, you may be working with several different insurance companies, and each of them may have their own application and application process. We also realize that the Accord application is the most commonly used form in the industry. For our purposes in this webinar, however, we'll be showing portions of the full Pinnacol application. Ultimately, the information presented in this section is designed to help you save time and provide you with an accurate quote the first time we quote this new piece of business. During the quoting process, you can submit a new business application in 3 different ways. The Accord application form, Pinnacol's online application form, or the full Pinnacol application. When submitting an Accord or Pinnacol online application, you'll also need to include the supplemental application. Remember that the Accord application and the full Pinnacol application can be mailed, faxed, or emailed as a scanned PDF. A PDF of the full Pinnacol application can easily be accessed by clicking on the Resources tab below. There, you'll find links provided to these documents and other supplemental forms. In order for Pinnacol to release a quote, there are certain pieces of information that must be included on the application. Again, for the purposes of this webinar, we're showing you portions of the full Pinnacol application. However, we understand that most of you will be submitting an Accord application. So, let's get started. The first section that must be completed is Part 1, General Information. This includes the legal name of the insured, trade name if applicable, the physical location of the Colorado business, and the mailing address. Now, keep in mind that these 2 addresses may be different, so be sure to verify this information. Additional general information such as the business phone number, fax number, and email address. Include their SIC class code. And finally, we need the organization's federal identification number. Having this information allows Pinnacol to determine if this organization has been a policyholder with us in the past. Part 2 of the application pertains to the type of ownership. This includes the entity type. Is it an individual, partnership, corporation, LLC, or nonprofit? The names of the owners, partners, or corporate officers. The last 4 digits of their Social Security numbers. The percentage of ownership for each owner, and their titles. Remember, we need to have the last 4 digits of each owner's Social Security number. Having these numbers allows Pinnacol to determine if the owners have had a prior policy or if they're associated with another policy. If an owner is associated with another policy, there could be combinability issues that we have to comply with. The last item we need is coverage information. For example, a corporate officer who owns 10% or more of an organization has the option to reject coverage. Inactive officers are excluded from coverage. Part 3 on the Pinnacol application form is a detailed description of business operations. In order to properly classify your business and estimate the premium, we need a complete and specific description of the organization's operations. For example, is the policy for a golf course that includes a pro shop, restaurant, and a bar? It is important to include these additional details. The more specific description you can provide about the business operations, the better. Or perhaps you happen to list the business as a contractor. This description is not detailed enough because in the construction industry, the type of operation can vary significantly. The insured could be a home building contractor, an excavation contractor, or a cement contractor. So please be specific as you describe the type of business operations. Part 4 of the application pertains to classification of operations, payroll, and owners. We need to know the annual payroll estimates by class code and the number of employees by class code. This information will allow us to better assess risk factors. Take the Acme Mining Company, for instance. They have 2 clerical employees in the front office. Out in the mine are 3 heavy equipment operators and 5 explosives handlers. Each of these jobs fall into different class codes. Parts 5 and 6 of the application are coverage options that are available for the policyholder. Part 7 describes Colorado premium credits. Part 8 outlines the terms and conditions. And finally, Part 9 is the acknowledgement of the application. Remember, the more detailed information you can provide us, whether it's on the Pinnacol application, the online application, or the most commonly used Accord application, the better. We rely on you for this information, and in turn, we can provide you with a fair and accurate quote for your client. As we wrap up this segment on the submission process, there are just a couple of additional items to cover. Is the organization part of an association? Do you have their experience modification information? This would include their EMOD factor and their risk ID. If you don't know their risk ID, but you do know their EMOD factor, please provide that information to us for the purposes of quoting. Are there any pricing options that might be applied to this policy? For instance, are they cost containment certified through the state? Do they want a deductible plan? Or are they interested in an individual loss control dividend plan? Also, be sure to include any loss runs that might be available. This allows us to review their losses, the types of losses, or the frequency of losses, and compare them to their business operations to ensure we're providing them with an accurate quote. Now the application is ready to be submitted and processed. Remember, following the submission steps and working with your Pinnacol underwriter will get your quote completed more efficiently and will help get the best policy price for your client. Once a quote's complete and the client accepts it, generally coverage is considered bound. Please be sure your client knows that coverage becomes effective the day after receipt of the required documents or on a specified future date. It's important to remember that coverage cannot be backdated. Once we have the signed and completed application, a policy can be formally issued. If the signed and completed application was provided during the quoting process and there's been no material change in the organization, there's no need to provide another copy of the application. As a reminder, when submitting the Accord application, we also need a signed and completed application supplement. If you're using a full Pinnacol application, we'll need the Pinnacol application completed in its entirety. There's no need to complete the application supplement if you're submitting a Pinnacol application. Also, when we bind a policy, we need to know the policy's 2 designated medical providers. Here's some other important items to know regarding binding orders and policy issuance. If for any reason an owner or officer has rejected coverage, we'll need the rejection of coverage by corporate officers form completed and signed. This includes Part A, which lists the information about the company and its officers, and Part B, which must be signed from the officer stating he or she wants to reject coverage. Does the class code listed on the policy need a signed individual guarantee of payment form? In the Resources section, you'll find a copy of the class codes that are required to complete this form. Has the policyholder elected to enroll in the Individual Loss Control Dividend Plan? If so, please be sure to include the signed form. Is the policyholder a member of an association? We'll need to have the signed and completed association enrollment form. If this was already provided during the quoting process, you don't need to include it again. If applicable, we also need to know if the policyholder is electing to participate in one of Pinnacol's deductible plans. For your convenience, we have e-signature forms available online, and we'll accept e-signatures online for the following documents: online application, application supplement, rejection of coverage by corporate officers, Part A and Part B, and the individual guarantee payment form. Additionally, faxed or electronic copies of all contractual forms are sufficient. There's no need to mail the originals. When submitting an application, there are a few time-sensitive items that you should be aware of. Policyholders have a 30-day grace period from the inception date of the policy to elect a deductible plan, receive their cost containment certification discount, and fill out the association member enrollment forms. The Individual Loss Control Dividend Plan has a 45-day grace period from the inception of the policy. Corporate officer rejection forms A and B have a 60-day grace period from the inception of the policy. And finally, in order to be eligible for the group association dividend of 4%, the policyholder must meet the criteria and enroll 45 days prior to the inception of the policy. You may be asking yourself, why is it that Pinnacol has so many forms and documents that need to be supplied to issue a policy? This is due to the many laws and regulations that actually dictate what all carriers, not just Pinnacol, must have in a policy file. Included in all policyholders' files must be a completed application. Anything that would impact their premium, for instance, the rejection of coverage by corporate officers form Part A and Part B. Additionally, we have to file specific information with the Division of Insurance, such as our tiered pricing tool, association programs, and the individual loss control dividend plan. Finally, these documents also assist with our exposure-based underwriting analysis. More information allows your underwriter to provide the most fair and adequate price. Up to this point, we've discussed exposure-based underwriting and the application submission process. Now, let's talk about pricing. There are several basic components that impact policy pricing. These include tiers, deductible plans, designated providers, retention discount, premium discount, schedule rating, cost containment certification, and the individual loss control dividend plan. Let's first take a look at tiers. Pinnacol has 6 levels, or tiers of pricing. The 6 tiers are Standard, Standard Plus, Preferred, Preferred Plus, Superior, and Non-Standard. These tiers are based on a predictive modeling tool. This tool evaluates risk factors and can predict what future performance might be and place it in the appropriate tier. In order to determine pricing, Pinnacol will examine the deductible amount chosen by the policyholder. For a small deductible plan, policyholders can choose a per-claim deductible amount of $500, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, or $5,000. Policyholders receive a 2.5% discount once they've selected their 2 designated medical providers. It's important to remember that Colorado workers' compensation law requires that policyholders must have 2 designated medical providers. Policyholders who've been with Pinnacol for more than 3 years are given a retention discount. This discount applies to policyholders that have less than $10,000 in manual premium. Policyholders receive a 5% discount when they've been with Pinnacol for more than 3 years of continuous coverage. Once a policyholder has been with Pinnacol for more than 6 consecutive years, a 7% discount will be applied. The premium discount applies to policies that have more than $10,000 in manual premium. A schedule rating applies to policies that have more than $10,000 in manual premium. This is a 25% schedule credit or debit, including the 2.5% designated provider discount. The credit or debit will depend on each individual policy's characteristics. Policyholders that are cost containment certified through the state are also eligible for a discount. The discount is 5% if they're experience rated or schedule rated. The discount can range between 2 and 10% if the policyholder is not experience rated or schedule rated. Pinnacol's individual loss control dividend plan applies to accounts that have $30,000 or more of manual premium using standard tier rates. In addition to our basic pricing options, there are loss-sensitive pricing plans. These plans are designed for larger policies that prefer to be self-insured, but are not yet ready to be self-insured. They require a high degree of safety management on the part of the policyholder. In addition to Pinnacol's small deductible plan, there are 3 additional deductible plans that are available. The mid-sized deductible plan can be applied to policies with an annual premium between $10,000 and $75,000, with or without an aggregate. The large deductible plan can be applied to policies with an annual premium between $100,000 and $7 million. This can be applied per occurrence or per claim. You can also apply an aggregate to the policy. The group large deductible plan is for homogeneous, like businesses, and non-homogeneous policies. We require the policy to be a minimum of $30,000 in manual premium in our standard tier for non-homogeneous businesses. If you have any questions about the deductible options, please contact your Pinnacol underwriter. Your underwriter will be happy to walk you through the deductible options that are available. Now let's consider retrospective rating plans. There are two retrospective rating plans that are available to potential policyholders. The first is the NCCI Retrospective Rating Plan. This plan allows the policyholder some control over the insurance costs and requires $100,000 in premium. This plan contains a maximum and minimum premium threshold and requires Pinnacol to compute the losses. Therefore, the minimum plus the losses equals the final premium. The second option is the Large Risk Alternative Rating Plan. This plan requires $350,000 in premium and is a paid loss retrospective plan. There's a maximum and minimum premium threshold. Pinnacol computes the losses, therefore the minimum plus the losses equal the final premium. Now let's take a couple of minutes to discuss unique policy structures available through Pinnacol. As you know, there can be many wrap-up plans which are unique in that the project sponsor pays the premium for all of the enrolled contractors on a project. An example of this type of policy would be the construction of Denver International Airport several years ago. The general contractor in charge of the project hired a number of subcontractors. Through a wrap-up policy, the general contractor paid for any payroll affiliated with the contractor's work at DIA and also paid their workers' compensation premiums. Now there are three types of wrap-up plans available: Owner-Controlled Insurance Plan, OCIP, Contractor-Controlled Insurance Plan, CCIP, and the Rolling Owner-Controlled Insurance Plan, ROCIP. For details on these wrap-up plans, be sure to talk to your underwriter for more specific information. Another unique policy is for the Professional Employer Organization, or PEO. These organizations provide employer services for companies such as human resources, payroll, or accounting. PEOs are considered a co-employer, and they can be included on a master policy or individual policy. When working with a PEO, it's best to contact your Pinnacol underwriter to discuss coverage for these unique entities. Colorado-based businesses with a Pinnacol policy who have operations outside of the state can purchase workers' compensation coverage from Zurich American Insurance Company through Pinnacol. This partnership allows Pinnacol's Colorado policyholders to obtain other states' coverage in 45 states. Our policyholders receive the same superior claims management and customer service from Zurich that they've come to expect from Pinnacol. Policyholders can expect quick, convenient claims reporting, exceptional claims management, and timely initiation of benefits. When working with a policyholder who may need out-of-state coverage, be sure to contact your Pinnacol underwriter for more details. Our dedicated other states coverage team will be happy to help you and your policyholder. Pinnacol Assurance is committed to having a strong partnership with you, our agents. We're here to help you grow your business and believe that together we can make good all across Colorado. Just as with any relationship, communication is the key to success, so we want to hear from you. Let us know what we can do to help provide you with the information you need. When working with a potential client, let us know what the overall business opportunity is so we can help you in the best way possible. Our goal is to provide you a fair and adequate price every time. Also, be sure to get to know your underwriter. They're here to collaborate with you, provide efficiencies, and provide any additional information that you might need. As always, Pinnacol is here to provide you and your clients with the highest level of customer service. Together, we can help make good all across Colorado. With those thoughts in mind, and on behalf of all of us here at Pinnacol, we'd like to once again express our appreciation to you for taking time to view this Pinnacol 101 Agent Training webinar. We hope you found it beneficial. And though we've reached the conclusion of this program, please remember that you can return to this program at any time and as often as you like. Also, please feel free to ask us any questions that you have by clicking the Ask a Question tab below. We'll get back to you with an email response within one business day. Finally, you'll soon receive an email from Pinnacol that contains a link to a brief survey about this training webinar. Please take a few minutes to help us serve you better by completing this short online survey. Again, from all of us here at Pinnacol, thanks for watching.